Welcome to the In My Opinion show with Ronald Berry Robinson and friends, seen on the internet 24 hours, 7 days a week. To view, please go to RBRIMO, those are capital letters, RBRIMO, and then go to videos to view our extensive catalog of shows. We are also seen on Flint, Michigan Comcast Cable, channel 17, every Saturday at 6 and every Wednesday at 8:30. We are also viewed on Detroit, Michigan Comcast Cable, channel 68, 7 days a week. I want to welcome our millions of viewers worldwide. I also want to welcome my very talented co-host, Mr. Henry Hatter.
Hi, Ron.
Hi, Mr. Hatter.
Okay.
Miss Denise Smith Allen.
Hello, Ron. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing fine.
Good.
And all our viewers worldwide. Murder in Ferguson, Missouri. Michael Brown was an 18-year-old black man who was murdered by Ferguson, Missouri police officer Darren Wilson on August 9, 2014, and left in the smoldering street for 4 hours like so much roadkill. Brown, who was college bound, will never be able to reach his dream of a college education and future. Mr. Brown had no criminal record. Brown's killing and subsequent events in Ferguson, Missouri have become a national and world outcry for justice and the rule of law. Touching on a much more larger issue of race, justice, and police killings of unarmed black men and women in America, Ferguson, Missouri has a troubled past of police brutality and racism like so many other urban cities. The question is why? The investigation in the shooting murder of this young man and the secretive grand jury and subsequent reaction by local authorities and city and state government, which is controlled by mostly white politicians despite Ferguson's majority black population, was a sham from the beginning. Like so many other police killings of unarmed black and brown and women and young adults, the question to be asked, why do these so-called whites hate us so much? What have we done to them that they murder us and hold us in such disdain and disrespect? The specifics of the Brown murder involved one murder, but the fact of the circumstance surrounding Brown's murder replicate a fear held by many citizens and parents that African Americans and other minorities' lives don't matter. Let's hope the federal government will take up the murder and civil rights abuse case and will proceed with unbiased and transparent investigations into Michael Brown's murder, as justice on the local level was not. Ferguson, Missouri has a history of lies and discrimination and treating minorities like second-class citizens. Does the circumstances in Missouri and around the nation really mirror racism and rage against law enforcement? Or is it about white rage against black and minority progress? Mr. Hatter, what's your thoughts?
Well, I was hoping that follow the wisdom that Denise always puts on the table first, but I'll just go ahead and respond to this. Ron, I am really disappointed. I'm disappointed with the people who are engaged in the resolution of the problem surrounding the Michael Brown's situation here. First of all, I think the that the American people ought to be in charge of this, and particularly the President of the United States and the justice system, Eric Holder. That's their job, to protect individuals from lawlessness, from violation of their rights, and so on and so forth. But you've got people out there like the Jesse Jacksons and others who were speaking out on this, who have absolutely no authority and no background in justice, the justice system. They're only people who advocate whenever there's a crisis in a community and they put a black spin on it. But everything is not murder. There are sometimes, except in this case, we could say that the police shooting Brown 6 or 7 times, or 5 or 7 times, that is wrong. There is the case, if you want to bring a murder charge against this police officer. That's where it is. But police officers have a right to defend themselves if they think they're threatened. That is true in every state in the Union. That's true in the military. That's true everywhere. It's always been that way. And we haven't done a good job, Ron, on the In My Opinion show, telling our kids how to protect themselves from the police. Because I have to tell my grandchildren there are certain things that you can't do. Sure, you're black and you have rights under the Constitution, but don't do these things. Because I don't want them to see them the victim of a shooting, a senseless shooting like this one. And I think that instead of having these advocacy groups out there flanking the president or running ahead of the president, taking care of these things, and getting the world community involved in all of this, which I know that much of the world is kind of trying to embarrass the United States with this issue, like Putin, because Putin doesn't like the president, and he do anything he can to embarrass the country because President Obama is in power, and we have to be cautious. We don't want the United States or the United Nations coming into this country having them speak on our domestic problems, because this is a sovereign country, and we don't need that. And there are people who are in the process of summoning the United Nations to come in and investigate. We don't need them. We can solve our own problems. We have a black president. He's very capable. We have Eric Holder. We have people in public policies that can handle these problems. But we got to remove all of the surrogates out of the picture and let the people do it who have the power and the muscle to resolve the problem.
Denise, what are your thoughts?
Okay, well, I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm going to just highlight just a few of them. For one thing, the police are supposed to be in a position to protect and serve. And it's unfortunate that we are at a state now where African American and other minorities are fearful of the simple act of walking while black, driving while black, talking while black, and so forth, okay? These things are real, whether we like it or not. This is the state that we're in. And it's unfortunate on the other side that police officers, some of them, based maybe on their background or whatever the case may be, they also are fearful because of whatever stereotypes that they have encountered. So it is a thing that on both sides there's education that needs to take place so that we can minimize the fear on both sides. The other thing relative to Ferguson particularly, which was disturbing to me, was the fact that the police officer was immediately removed away from the spotlight, and the focus became the young man, and then they started putting out footage of him, being in a store and doing what he did in the store, which was not a good thing. It was kind of like a strong arm robbery, but that police officer had no knowledge of that. What happened out there, only he and the young man that was killed will actually know for sure. We can speculate, and the grand jury heard certain evidence, maybe some things that the American public may not be privy to, but I still say that there was a lot that's happened over a span of years that have gotten the police agencies and the communities where they are today. McCullough, who I believe was the district attorney, if I'm not mistaken, he should have recused himself from this situation because his father had been killed by a black man. So regardless to whether he can say, I am not biased about this thing, it's all about perception. And in my mind, perception in a lot of cases is reality. So the best way to have handled that, it was to move himself from that situation and let someone else who had not had that situation happen to them, so they wouldn't have that as a reason to look at him under these circumstances. I also believe that the media played a big portion in this. Some of them probably thought that they were doing a good thing to stay on top of the situation and to record it and to let the people know blow by blow what was going on. But it's very interesting, based on which media outlet that you saw. If you saw Fox, they were talking about rioting and looting and that kind of thing, putting a negative spin on it. And then you might see CNN who had a different perspective. So the whole thing, if you're, if that's what you're feeding the American public, what you're doing then is elevating the fear factor, okay? And then talking about bringing in and actually showing footage of police agencies who are getting prepared in riot gear and that kind of thing. Now, again, you're talking about protect and serve, but now you've got the people fearful because you've got this looking like a military operation.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, like I said, I have a lot of thoughts about this. It was an unfortunate tragedy. A family lost a member of their family. They asked for calm. I believe that for the most part, the people were reacting calmly. There may have been some agitation. We don't know whether it was inside, outside. We don't know what that was. But the point is, though, you have a lot of your young people, particularly those who are on the fringes, who are just so upset about, maybe they have records, maybe they got all this other stuff going on, and they're not able to be a part of society, if you will. They're angry. They're angry. And so maybe that is one of the ways in which they vent their anger. Is it something that is helpful? Not necessarily, but it does get your attention. It does get your attention. So I think that, like I said, there's so many caveats to this whole situation, but it's indicative of the fact that there is definitely a breakdown in the system. Our system is definitely broken. And I believe that one of the remedies to this whole police situation is having cameras on all of the officers in their vehicles and on their person. And that would help them understand what their role is as far as dealing with, volatile situations. And those situations, again, split-second decision, which can impact both their professional career and the person who is in front of them. Right when all of this took place, certainly I think it was maybe within the last couple of days, there was a young man, 12 years old, in Ohio who was shot. Okay, now they had footage of that, and they showed this young man who was brandishing what appeared to be a real weapon, but it turns out that it was not. So, it's indicative. We've got a problem. The system is broken, and we have to figure out how we can fix it. But we have to come to the table, and we have to talk. We have to get police officers who are understanding of their role and their limitation. And I also think that in some instances, those that are on the front line for a year or more should be brought back in and psychologically tested, because it's like being in a war for some of them. It's like being in the war. And when you have people who come back from Afghanistan or from any other warring situation, they bring them back and they debrief them and they help them to understand, what's going on with them psychologically. And I think it would do police agencies justice to do something like that for them. So I guess I'll stop right now because I
No,
said
those
a
are
lot.
excellent. Those are excellent points.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
did a good job. But,
we have to inform our, our viewing audience.
Mm-hmm.
but what we need to do is spend more time informing our kids for their self-survival.
Absolutely,
And,
absolutely.
our kids cannot go out and do whatever they want and badger or taunt the police.
Absolutely not.
And they do that a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
they
do.
do. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that we should help educate our children. Okay. But I think when a police officer signs on for the job, they
Yeah.
know that when they put that uniform on, that they become a
have a
target, and
responsibility.
they have a responsibility to understand that yes, you will be taunted, yes, you will be cursed out, yes, somebody may even try to swing on you, but you already know that coming into it, and so therefore you have to have enough training, and you also have to have enough personal integrity
Mm-hmm.
to understand your limitations.
Yes.
You have to understand your limitations. And so when you start taking the law in your own hand and become jury and judge
Mhm,
and
and
take a person's
execution.
life,
Mhm.
then there's a whole nother,
There were a number
situations.
of mistakes there that I didn't like. Just leaving the body out in the open, in an open field,
Yeah,
open
that's-
road, without building a barricade around it and a top over it so the body is not seen by helicopter. They flash signals all over the world, like this is the worst place in the world to live and stuff like that, because it's a war going on here, which is not. I think that stuff, the police didn't do their job. They didn't do their diligence. They could have, and the governor could have come in and took charge of that situation and defused it or limited it some. But there was not enough action. They just left it to the police there, and they didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
They left the body out there for 4 hours.
I know.
Well, see, that
I
just
know.
illustrates what we're talking about. Okay, that's the mentality, obviously, of that police department. All right. So if they're going to leave a murder, I mean, a young man's body, whether it's black, white, red, or brown, in the street for 4 hours in the hot sun, that is totally unacceptable.
Sure it is.
That lets you
Sure
know
it is.
just exactly how they feel about the blacks in Ferguson, Missouri, as well as how cops, not all, but many, feel about us in our urban communities.
But Ron,
Okay?
all of this stuff is going to change. I believe in the president. I believe in the
It's only
no,
one.
it's
That's only
Hogan.
one man.
Hang on. The president. The people will listen to the president, but they're not going to listen to other people. That's why we're making so much progress because the American people are listening to the president, and I believe that this will we are going to react in such a way that things will improve. But they won't improve as long as we go out looking lawlessness and breaking in homes and burning down buildings and stuff like that. We have to seize control of the agenda, not let those kids run the agenda or angry people run the agenda and
Well-
say they're angry because someone got shot. But there's a system out there for handling this.
But the system
broke.
is broken, and so
We
here's
say it's broken.
it
That's
is-
a cute word to
but
use,
it is. But listen
we are
to me,
better
Henry.
off in this country today than we've ever been.
We're better off, but there's always room for improvement. And
Yes.
as you say, improvement is coming, but sometimes the progress is a little slow.
But you got to
And
let the
somehow-
president handle.
and sometimes, in order to get some attention, had it not been for demonstrations and things of that nature, we would still be dealing with a situation like it was back in the 50s and the 40s and so forth. We got American, some of the journalists, who
Yeah.
were conscious, put things out there so that people would understand that this situation was dire and it needed to be taken care of. It needed to be addressed. So now we have people who are what they did with some of the malls where they went out and they staged protests. Now you're talking economic boycotting. Okay, now that to me is effective. That's what Martin Luther King did when he did with the bus boycott. And so again, the reason being, when you start hitting folks in their pocketbook, then you start getting their attention, and then you say, "Oh, is it really a police problem?" Okay, well maybe in these various police communities throughout the nation, there needs to be dialogue and there needs to be discussion, open, frank discussion about perceptions on both sides and education on both sides so people will understand. Policing is not an easy job, and everybody who goes into that work is not necessarily fit for it.
Yeah.
So they need to do a better job in screening and evaluating the people that they bring in, and also, like I say, from time to time, bring them out of the field and test these people and do whatever they can to find out. Because if they've got personal problems going on at their house and whatnot, and they go out in the community and they're all messed up and, things happen. Okay, so you have to be concerned about the people that you have working for you.
Yeah, but these kind of incidents are not going to go away just because we're talking about it or you retrain them. They're always going to be part of our community.
You can minimize them, though.
That's our problem. That's what we have to do.
We have to minimize them.
Yes.
We're not going to live. We don't live in a perfect world, and
Yeah.
we know that things will happen. But some things are just totally uncalled for,
But we can't
egregious.
break the system down to.
If we
But the
have
system-
to, that's what we have to do. Is
But the system,
break the system down.
The system is broken.
Oh.
Okay, the reason why I say that, because the idea of community policing, at the point when police officers were patrolling, physically getting out of their vehicles and walking into communities and knowing who the community people were, and the officers were in turn known by the residents, you had a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas you could call them. At the time, I remember in Flint, where we live, we had police officers who I knew by name. I had their number. okay, and I could call them if there was some drug activity or something that was going amiss. I could call them, and the block clubs and people like that felt empowered. We don't have that now, okay? And so I don't know what goes on in the rest of the United States. I can only speak for the little area that I live in, but I can say that if that was working, then maybe they can kind of look at that and say, this is an opportunity for us to revisit it. We can tweak it and make it better, you
It's
know?
going to take people like the people, in my opinion, show who are well informed, who believe in connecting themselves to other elements in the community to change this, along with the power of the president. That's going to change things. The president, once the president leaves, we don't have this opportunity anymore.
And I was interested in something you said too about law enforcement. In my view, I think they should be psychologically tested every year. Okay, compulsorily. I mean, made to
Mandatorily.
mandatorily. Okay, be tested psychologically every year. All right, whether you're on the street or you're sitting behind a computer. Okay, because you never know what goes on in a person's mind, and weed out the ones that that you feel based on a board action. All right, and get them out of there because the cops are the major reason that this nation has experienced so many riots. All right, just think about it. You got Los Angeles, you got New York, you got Chicago, all right, and way before that, all right, and you got them coming into Oklahoma, bombing and killing folk. And then it's just ridiculous. Okay, America doesn't need, and they were down in Ferguson, Missouri too. America doesn't need KKK policemen. We've had enough of them. All right. If you go down there in Ferguson, Missouri, right now, you'll see them marching around with their little white hoods on and things of that nature. But the bottom line is that we have to do more to police our communities ourselves. All right, legally. Okay, because half of these, from what I understand, a whole lot of these police right here in Flint too, are scared. All right, I'm not saying that they don't have reasons to be, but you get out there and you abuse folk, all right, and misuse people, and lie on people in courts and so forth. What do you expect is going to happen?
But the great
You're going to have a whole lot of
police
angry.
don't do that, Ron. There are only a few that do that. Rogue police.
Well, that few is too many.
Well, but we have to protect the integrity of the system. Characterize the system by what it really is. We can't live in a community without the police, even at that.
I understand that. I disagree with that part. You know what I mean? I think they ought to
You don't
get
have
rid
a
of them.
community then.
You know what I mean?
Well, you
Get
do
rid of
have a
the rogues.
community, but
Not without policemen.
well, no. You can have a community, and if you want to maintain your community, what you have to do is develop relationships through networking with your block clubs and things of that nature. You have to put together some folks on the ground who live in the community, and then you have police for those who are lawless, and that's a small percentage. Really, it's a small percentage. Okay, and so it's kind of like that broken window theory. So you have policing for those people who are outside of the parameters of what the community expects. So but it's up to the people who live in the community to have certain requirements even of their residents.
Yeah, and that's what I want to get at, Denise, because we have an obligation ourselves,
Certainly,
as citizens in the community,
absolutely,
to protect and control and influence our people, particularly our young people. If you don't do that, then they run awry.
Right.
And they tear the community up. And that's up to us to set those kind of parameters. You're right about policemen having this relationship with block clubs and so on and so forth. It's a good system. But we need to accept responsibility. When our kids do the wrong thing, we need to accept responsibility and not pull the race card, each time. We need to ask the kids, if you if you did something and they get apprehended, what did you learn from this?
Mm-hmm.
The parents need to ask them.
Sure.
They don't need to just go down and plead their case based upon racism. We don't
No.
need to. We never want to feel victimized all the time.
No.
We want to feel strong and and relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I agree with you, Henry, but also too, nothing in this country has ever been settled or understood without social unrest and demonstrations. Okay, but at this time, we must bring the, in my opinion, show to a close. This has been a very lively conversation. I wish we had another half an hour because there's a few things more that I would like to say, but unfortunately, the time doesn't allow that. I want to thank our millions of viewers worldwide and my excellent technical crew and my co-host. This is Ronald Bay Robinson and friends saying until next time, stay focused.